Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. This story is real, raw, and it only gets darker from here. There's a table at Marlowe's Steakhouse in Boulder that I'll never be able to sit at again. Not because the food was bad or the service was terrible. Number, because that table still haunts me. Table 14, tucked in the back near the fireplace, dim light overhead. It was reserved for our wedding rehearsal dinner. Instead, I sat there alone. Just me. And a glass of water that nobody bothered to refill. No one tells you how humiliating it is to explain, face to face, to a restaurant manager that the bride-to-be, well, she might be missing. Might, because at the time, I still didn't know. Lyra had left for a solo soul-searching retreat. 3 days in Oregon, supposedly. That's what she told me while rolling up her yoga mat and stuffing it into a duffel bag she never even used before. She said, I wouldn't understand. She said, trust me, Emory. So I did. She sent me one text when she landed. Made it. Don't wait up. Talk soon. That was 23 days ago. You ever feel like your life is being slowly erased while you're still living in it? I canceled the florist, the photographer, the honeymoon suite. I called her mother, who also hadn't heard anything. She asked me why I was so calm. I wasn't. I was broken in slow motion. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just stood in our hallway and stared at the robe she left on the hook. The white one with her initials embroidered on the sleeve. I stared at it for hours like it might move. On day 10, the police finally agreed to do a welfare check. She wasn't at the cabin. She hadn't been there at all, not even once. That's when the ground beneath me started to crack. Because that's when I realized everything. The booking, the emails, the photos she'd posted could have been staged. On day 14, her phone pinged in Nevada. Not Oregon. Not even close. I booked a bus, not a plane, because my hands were shaking too hard to buy a flight. And when I arrived at that hotel, when I saw whose name the second room was under, when I found out what she'd really been doing those 3 weeks, I wasn't prepared for how loud hotel lobbies can be. The kind of artificial brightness that hums through your skin, fluorescent lights overhead, slot machines ringing behind glass doors. I stood there holding my backpack like a lost kid, watching the receptionist scroll through her screen. My voice cracked when I said Lyra's full name. She typed it, paused, then blinked back at me. She checked in 11 days ago, she said. Checked out yesterday. My chest went hollow. She had never been missing. She had just been here. Somewhere between the rooftop bar and the heated indoor pool, my fiancé had decided that I no longer existed. But what twisted everything worse was the second name listed on the reservation. Corwin Adler. I hadn't heard that name in 7 years. Not since he transferred out of my old tech firm. Not since he and I fought over an internal promotion, and he accused me of sabotaging his chances. We were never friends, but I never expected he'd reappear like this, quietly co-signing my fiancé's vanishing act like it was some kind of petty prank. I didn't confront the hotel staff. I just asked for a copy of the folio, pretending I was from her insurance company. My hands shook as I scanned the line items. Spa treatments for 2, room service for 2, a champagne charge at midnight, massages, a double kayak rental from the resort lake. I read it all while sitting on a bench outside, tears blurring the ink. I wasn't mad yet. I was embarrassed. All those voicemails I'd left her, the sleepless nights, the canceled cake tasting, the apology calls I made to her relatives for an absence I didn't cause. I called Corwin. I don't even know why. Maybe I thought I could be civil. Maybe I needed to hear his voice to believe it was real. He answered on the second ring. Emory, he said. Not surprised, not nervous, just smug. Guess you found out, huh? No apology, no remorse. I asked him if Lyra was with him. He laughed. She was. But she's got other plans now. Sorry, man. It's complicated. Then he hung up. I didn't go home after that. I sat in that city for 3 more days, trying to figure out how much of my life had been a lie. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have predicted, was that Lyra's betrayal hadn't even started yet. Because what arrived at my doorstep the moment I got home shattered me beyond recognition. I knew something was off the moment I got back to my apartment. The air inside felt foreign, like the space had been tampered with, even though nothing was visibly touched. I dropped my duffel by the door and noticed the small cardboard box leaning against the wall with no return address, no note. just my name in big, hurried letters. I stared at it like it might explode. For a second, I actually hoped it was from Lyra, maybe a letter or some twisted explanation. I carried it inside, sat on the edge of the couch, and opened it with a butter knife. Inside was a folded black hoodie that didn't belong to me, a crumpled cocktail napkin with lipstick on it, and, this one hit me hardest, a silver pendant I had given Lyra on our second anniversary. It was shaped like a compass, with tiny engraved words on the back, no matter where. That was our thing, no matter where. I remember watching her cry when I first gave it to her. Now it sat in a half-crushed jewelry box like garbage. Beneath it was a flash drive taped to a piece of cardboard. Nothing written on it, just a cold little rectangle full of answers I wasn't sure I wanted. I paced the apartment for almost an hour before plugging it into my laptop. The folder was titled Proof. Inside were 6 video files. No thumbnails, just timestamps. I opened the first. It was surveillance footage from the Reno hotel, Lyra and Corwin holding hands, laughing like they'd won the lottery. The second clip? A different location, an outdoor rooftop bar, maybe in Phoenix, the same pair. Different city, her head on his shoulder. The last file was a phone recording, Corwin's voice drunk and slurred, boasting to someone about taking her from that soft boy Emory, saying, "I'd never see it coming." Lyra's voice was in the background, laughing. Not protesting, laughing. I think I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before it hit me. I had been living with a stranger, sleeping beside a person who was already halfway out the door. And now, she was out completely. No explanation, no confrontation, just this box, a box full of artifacts from a betrayal I wasn't even allowed to understand. I wanted to scream, I wanted to burn everything, but instead, I just sat there, listening to the last clip over and over until it didn't even sound like her anymore. And then, I started planning something I never thought I'd do. Not revenge exactly, but something close. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. The videos on the flash drive played on a loop in my head, as if my brain refused to let me forget a single second. By morning, I was more numb than angry. That's the part that scared me. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, but the emptiness that followed. It was like my body had unplugged itself from the world. I didn't respond to texts. I left voicemails from family unanswered. My phone buzzed with messages about refunding wedding gifts, and all I could do was watch it blink like a bomb I didn't want to defuse. I wasn't going to look at her social media. I told myself that. But curiosity is a disease when you're heartbroken. I typed her name into every platform we used to share, but her profiles were either locked or wiped clean. Then, out of sheer desperation, I searched her email through a backdoor recovery link we once used to sync our calendars. That's when I found the username at Lyra Wanders, not her real account, a hidden one. Photos of cities she never told me she visited, poses with buildings I didn't recognize, captions that dripped with sarcasm about freedom and finally waking up. Some photos had Corwin in the background, others had different men. None of them were me. There was one post that made my stomach flip. A mirror selfie in what looked like the hotel suite in Reno, with the caption, "This view is better when you're not pretending to be in love." It had been liked by someone named at J.Adler_NV. Corwin's brother. I clicked his profile. Open, and what I saw shattered the little control I had left. An entire album labeled Engagement Party, Vegas Edition. Lyra was there, wearing a white dress, with Corwin's arms around her waist, a faux cake in the background, everyone smiling, her smiling. They weren't hiding, not really. They were celebrating while I sat at home, surrounded by canceled R, S, V, PS, and untouched centerpieces. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a rewrite. I was being erased from my own life. I slammed my laptop shut and let out a sound I didn't recognize. It wasn't a sob, it was something deeper, something feral. I don't know when I made the decision, but I found myself booking a room in Vegas the next day. Not to confront them, at least that's what I told myself. I just wanted to see for myself how real it all was. But I had no idea that Vegas was going to deliver something even worse than the box. Vegas smells like perfume and regret. The moment I stepped out of the cab and into the lobby of the Stardust Mirage, it hit me. Too bright, too loud, too artificial. Everything was designed to distract you from how empty you really felt inside. I wasn't there to gamble, or drink, or cause a scene. I just wanted to see it. Their world. The new life Lyra had assembled with stolen pieces of mine. I checked into a cheap room across the street, facing their hotel. It was pathetic, I know, but watching from a distance felt safer than confronting her outright. That first night, I just sat on the balcony with binoculars, sipping warm Coke and waiting for her to appear like a ghost. And then, she did. I spotted her around 10:30 p.m., stepping into a rooftop bar wearing a gold dress I had seen once in the back of her closet, something she claimed was too loud for her taste. She didn't look out of place here. She looked like she belonged. I don't know how long I watched. At one point, Corwin leaned in and kissed her neck, and I flinched like I'd been slapped. I didn't take pictures. I didn't record. That wasn't why I was there. I just needed it to be real, so I could finally stop pretending I had imagined it all. The next morning, I went downstairs for coffee, and that's when I saw her again, but this time, alone. Standing in the gift shop, flipping through postcards like she wasn't tearing my life apart back home. I stood behind a rack of sunglasses and just stared. My hands were sweating. My mouth was dry. I could have walked up to her. I could have said anything. But something in me froze. She looked different. Not guilty, not nervous, just content. As if she hadn't vanished without a word. As if she hadn't sent me a box full of proof that our entire relationship had been a prelude to a punchline. When she left the shop, I followed. Not to confront her. I told myself that over and over, just to see where she went. She walked across the street to a small off-strip cafe and sat alone at a booth. I stayed across the street, hidden in the patio of a diner with a clear view. For 20 minutes, she scrolled her phone. Then someone joined her. Not Corwin. Someone older. A man in a tailored gray suit, sunglasses on indoors. She smiled at him, more warmly than I'd seen her smile at anyone in years. He handed her something in an envelope. She tucked it into her purse without opening it. They didn't touch. They didn't kiss. But the way she leaned in when he spoke, it was intimate, familiar. And just like that, the narrative shifted again. Corwin wasn't the end. He might not even be the middle. And whatever was in that envelope, I knew I had to find out, because it felt like I'd only just started peeling back the layers, and I was nowhere near the center yet. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe it was the weeks of unanswered questions, or maybe it was the way Lyra laughed with that stranger, like they were actors in a scene they'd rehearsed 100 times. But the moment she left the cafe and headed for the crosswalk, I moved. I didn't plan it. My legs just acted on their own, like some pathetic instinct kicking in. I walked into the cafe as the suited man got up from the booth and went to the restroom. The envelope was still sitting on the table, tucked halfway under the salt shaker. I looked around. No one was watching. I grabbed it, stuffed it into my jacket, and walked out like I was late for a meeting. My heart pounded so hard I thought someone would stop me just from the sound, but no one did. I made it back to my hotel room before I opened it. There were two things inside: a contract of some kind, thin, printed on expensive paper, and a small Polaroid photo. I read the document first. It was a non-disclosure agreement, generic at first glance, but with very specific clauses about media exposure, intellectual property, and personal likeness. It was addressed to Lyra. It had already been signed by her. The other signature line was blank. There was no company name, no logo, just a watermark in the bottom corner that read Aurelia Studios. That name meant nothing to me until I Googled it. Aurelia Studios was a high-end, immersive experience brand, supposedly focused on exclusive social experiments, luxury content creation, and private performance art for elite clients. But their website was vague, too vague, and the more I clicked, the more I realized none of it added up. They had no portfolio, no client reviews, just cryptic lines like, "Reality is flexible when no one is watching." The Polaroid, though, that was real. It was of Lyra, in the same gold dress from the rooftop bar, but she wasn't with Corwin or the man from the cafe. She was alone, sitting on a throne-like chair, surrounded by cameras, staring straight ahead, and smiling. That smile didn't look like hers. It looked rehearsed, like she was playing a part. But why? For what? My fiancée had vanished from my life, faked a solo retreat, staged an affair, and now appeared to be participating in... what? A secret production? Some kind of performance? Was our entire relationship part of it? That night, I didn't sleep again. My phone rang twice, block number both times. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was starting to suspect I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being used for something bigger, something I didn't understand yet. The more I thought about Aurelia Studios, the less I believed it was a real business. It felt like a cover, something rich people whispered about over cocktails in private rooms, while the rest of us carried on with our meaningless lives. But Lyra wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. She didn't even like being on camera. So why was she signing NDAs and sitting in staged rooms like a paid actress in some elaborate secret production? I had questions, but I was quickly learning I couldn't trust anyone to give me answers. So I did the only thing I could think of. I booked a tour at Aurelia's listed headquarters in Henderson, Nevada, about 25 minutes from the Strip. It was a long shot. I knew that. But I had to see if anything about this operation was real. The building was modern, minimalist, and cold. A single receptionist greeted me with a rehearsed smile and a clipboard. I signed in under a fake name, Theo Brunner, a name I borrowed from an old college roommate who once said he'd be flattered if I ever used his identity in a spy movie situation. This felt close enough. The tour was short, sterile hallways, abstract sculptures, walls covered in phrases like, "Truth is just well-edited fiction." The woman leading us spoke in polished phrases about narrative immersion and relationship architecture. Nothing she said made real sense, but the others on the tour nodded like they understood, like they were part of something. At the end, I asked her casually, "Hey, do you ever work with freelance performers? A friend of mine mentioned this place." She paused just slightly, then smiled too wide. "We don't comment on participants. Everyone's experience is private." She handed me a business card, no name, just a QR code that led to a blank page. That's when I knew. Lyra wasn't just cheating. She was involved in something curated, scripted, monetized. When I got back to my hotel that night, there was an envelope slid under my door. No markings, no stamps. Just a folded sheet of paper with 4 words in clean black ink. "Stop watching." "Go home." I dropped it immediately. My heart climbed into my throat. The hotel security footage showed no record of anyone entering the hallway during that time. I checked the front desk. Nothing. It was as if the message had appeared from nowhere. I wasn't just chasing the truth anymore. I was being watched too. And if that was true, what exactly had I stepped into? I didn't sleep that night either. The note had done something to me. It wasn't just fear, it was clarity. A strange, bitter clarity that stripped away whatever hope I had left of understanding Lyra's choices. Whoever was watching didn't care about closure. They wanted me out of the way, forgotten, erased, just like she had tried to do. But something shifted in me when I looked at that note again. It was supposed to scare me. Instead, it gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. The next morning, I left the hotel, but not to go home. I stopped by a tech store and bought a portable scanner, a hard drive, and a tiny voice recorder. If they wanted silence, I'd give them the opposite. I uploaded everything I had, the videos, the NDA, the photo, the note, and wrote a detailed account of what happened, anonymized just enough to protect myself legally, but real enough to sting. I uploaded the entire file to a cloud server and sent a timed link to my lawyer, my therapist, and myself, just in case. Then, I got on a plane back home, and I let Vegas disappear in the rear view like a bad dream. It took me 3 weeks to feel human again. I moved out of our apartment, gave away the furniture we picked together, and sold the engagement ring online. I used the money to buy a one-way ticket to Vermont, where my sister runs a small bookstore. I help out now, quietly. I drink coffee while it's still warm. I talk to strangers without second-guessing every word. I write sometimes, short stories mostly. Fiction. But one of them? It's about a man whose fiancée vanished, only to discover she was part of a secret world where truth is a product and love is a performance. It's the first thing I've written that doesn't make me feel like a fool. It makes me feel free. Lyra never contacted me again, and I stopped checking. Because somewhere between the deception, the cameras, and the silence, I found myself again. Not the man she wanted, but the man who survived. Thanks for listening to my story. Have you ever heard of a historical moment where truth was twisted into performance? Drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves a good twist. You're watching Reddit Confessions. Until next time.